Imagine you're at 16,000 feet. The seatbelt sign is off, people are reading, sleeping, when suddenly, a deafening explosion rips through the cabin. A door-sized hole opens to the freezing sky. Oxygen masks drop. The wind is screaming. This isn't a scene from a disaster movie. It's just a Tuesday on a Boeing 737 MAX. And it is the direct result of a 30-year corporate suicide. For decades, Boeing wasn't just a company, it was the crown jewel of American engineering. They built the bombers that won World War II. They built the rocket that put humanity on the moon. They built the 747, shrinking the globe and democratizing air travel. The saying used to be, "If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going." Because Boeing planes were over-engineered fortresses of the sky. But today, the name Boeing evokes terror, congressional hearings, whistleblowers stepping forward with chilling testimonies, and executives scrambling to explain how their planes keep falling apart. The story of how we got from the Apollo missions to blown-out panels and grounded fleets isn't really a story about airplanes at all. It is a story about Wall Street. It is the story of how finance executives systematically killed the greatest engineering culture in history. To understand the murder of Boeing, you have to go back to 1997. Boeing was flush with cash and dominating the skies. But its management made a fateful decision. They bought their failing rival, McDonnell Douglas. On paper, Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas. But in reality, McDonnell Douglas executives, men obsessed with stock prices, cost-cutting, and Wall Street appeasement, staged a reverse takeover. Before the merger, Boeing was run by engineers. If an engineer said a part needed to be stronger, or a design needed another year of testing, the executives listened. The product was the priority, but the new leadership viewed engineering as a cost center. They believed that management was a generic skill, that you didn't need to know how to build a plane to run a plane-building company. The shift was brutal and deliberate. In 2001, to physically isolate the bean counters from the plane builders, Boeing moved its corporate headquarters from Seattle, where the factories were, to Chicago. The executives didn't want to hear the noise of the factory floor or the complaints of the union workers. They wanted to look at spreadsheets. The new mandate was simple: boost the stock price, cut research and development, squeeze the suppliers, outsource everything you possibly can. Instead of investing billions in designing the next revolutionary aircraft, Boeing started spending billions on stock buybacks to enrich shareholders and executives. This toxic culture set the stage for the 737 MAX disaster. In 2011, Boeing was caught completely off guard. Their European rival, Airbus, announced a highly fuel-efficient plane called the A320neo. Airlines loved it. American Airlines, a fiercely loyal Boeing customer, threatened to defect to Airbus. Panic set in at Chicago headquarters. Designing a brand new airplane from scratch takes a decade and costs up to $20 billion. Wall Street wouldn't tolerate that kind of expense. So, management took a shortcut. They decided to take the 737N airframe designed in the 1960s, a plane that sat incredibly low to the ground, and just slapped massive, modern, fuel-efficient engines on it. But there was a problem. A massive physics problem. The new engines were too big to fit under the old wings. To make them fit, engineers had to move the engines higher and further forward. This changed the aerodynamics of the plane completely. Under certain conditions, like during a steep takeoff, the nose of the plane wanted to pitch up dangerously, which could lead to a catastrophic stall. In the old Boeing, the engineers would have stopped the line. They would have said the design is fundamentally flawed. But in the Wall Street era of Boeing, stopping was not an option. Instead of fixing the hardware, they decided to patch it with software. They created a system called MCAS. Its job was simple. If sensors detected the nose pitching up too high, the software would automatically force the nose back down. But Boeing made a fatal, unforgivable calculation. To sell the plane to airlines, they promised that pilots wouldn't need expensive simulator training to fly the MAX. They claimed it handled exactly like the old 737S. Because of this lie, They hid the existence of MCAS from the pilots. They didn't put it in the flight manuals. They didn't train them on it. Furthermore, they tied this incredibly powerful system, a system that could forcefully take control of the plane away from the pilot, to a single, easily damaged sensor on the outside of the aircraft. No redundancy, no backup. It was an astonishing violation of basic aviation safety principles, all to save money and protect the stock price. The results were devastating. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 crashed into the Java Sea. Just 5 months later, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 plunged into the earth. 346 men, women, and children were killed. In both cases, a faulty sensor triggered MCAS. The software thought the planes were stalling when they weren't. It aggressively forced the noses down. The terrified pilots, who didn't even know MCAS existed, fought with all their might to pull the planes up, but the software relentlessly overpowered them, driving them into the ground. It wasn't an unavoidable tragedy. It was a massacre caused by a spreadsheet. The subsequent investigations blew the lid off Boeing's rotten culture. Internal communications revealed test pilots bragging about how they had tricked regulators, describing the plane as designed by clowns, who in turn are supervised by monkeys. The FAA, the agency supposed to regulate Boeing, had practically outsourced its oversight to Boeing itself to save money and time. It was a complete institutional failure. And while Boeing paid billions in fines and fired its CEO, the structural rot remained. The culture of prioritizing the stock ticker over the rivet hadn't died. Fast forward to today, and we see the exact same symptoms. Doors blowing out mid-flight. Whistleblowers testifying before Congress about ignored safety warnings, retaliation, and planes being pushed out of the factory with known dangerous defects. Mechanics report finding loose bolts, debris left in fuel tanks, and a relentless pressure from upper management to prioritize schedule over quality. The phantom of McDonnell Douglas still haunts the factory floors. The story of Boeing is a tragedy, but it's also a warning. When a nation allows its greatest engineering triumphs to be hijacked by financial engineers, the damage isn't just measured in lost market share or dropping stock prices. It's measured in lost lives, shattered trust, and the permanent decline of American industrial might. Wall Street didn't just kill Boeing, it stripped it for parts and sold off the scrap. Rebuilding that trust and rebuilding the engineering supremacy that once defined this company will take more than firing a few executives. It will take a complete exorcism of the financial culture that brought it to its knees.